Accept.
I've started the recording.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3.
Hello and welcome. You're watching. Oh, sorry. Okay. Hello and welcome. You're watching Medically Speaking, and I'm Meenakshi Upreti. With me, Dr. Padma Srivastav. She is the HOD of the Neuro Department of the Elite AIMS Institute from the National Capital. Thank you, ma'am, once again for joining us on Newsx. Ma'am, you know the topic. The burning issue right now, Omicron variant. How much do we need to worry? We have 2 cases which have been found in India. The first case, one of the cases is a doctor who's had no foreign contact, who's had no history of foreign travel. What does that mean? Does it mean that Omicron is already in India, that perhaps it's possible it could have already spread, or is it too early to press the panic button, ma'am?
Thank you, Meenakshi. I think it is now 3 cases. I've just heard that the third case has been turned Omicron positive in Gujarat from, again, an international travel. So these cases are bound to come up. Now, as regards the positivity in a person who did not have a travel history, that's a concern that you have raised. Now, we also know that there's been also from the WHO that this variant is about 3 times more infectious. So it certainly seems to have a precedence in terms of infectivity over and above the Delta variant. So obviously, when there is a contact with an infectious person around, so the infection rate would spread. Now, as regards the fear versus being alert versus pressing the panic button. When you press the panic button, it leads to some knee-jerk reactions and also to probably some of the actions which are undesirable. What at this time we need is to be fearful, because when you're fearful, you're on guard, you're alert, and therefore you would take preventive measures. So said that, whatever information has come now, it does see that it is definitely more transmissible and more infections. And the WHO also has said that the reinfection rate means that those who had COVID infection in the past or who are vaccinated also are getting these infections with Omicron. And there is also information from whatever the cases that have been seen so far, it has been mild. And the spectrum seems to be a little different in the sense that they did not record a loss of smell and loss of taste, a more milder spectrum without the involvement grossly of lungs or oxygen lack or hospitalizations, and certainly no deaths. That's encouraging. Said that though, we know that the infections have not really gone on to involve very elderly, immune compromised. Those individuals, even a minor infection can lead to a major problem. So giving it a blanket statement that this would always remain mild, we don't know. So we yet to see. That's number 1 to fear. Number 2 is that whenever the infection spread very of mutations, and when you have more mutations, we do not know how the virus again behaves, mutates, and may lead to another variant. So that's another concern. So therefore, we have to be fear precautions that this infection should not spread.
Right. And, ma'am, since you mentioned, of course, the third case as well. Now, this third case is a man who had traveled to Zimbabwe. The second case, of course, is someone who's had a travel history from South Africa. I specifically talk about the doctor who had the interpretation we would like to understand, ma'am, as Indians, because there is, of course, a growing fear. As far as this variant is concerned, is it possible that it perhaps already is in India, and that this mutation is not just imported anymore, it could have already spread?
That's a concern that some of the virologists have raised. We do have some information which has come from some virologists who say that this probably is already existent. And all these kind of viral flu-like features that are sometimes seen, and in this weather and this season, you have that very commonly seen, that when supposing these people are tested, then maybe, this thing is there. But that's the the kind of what you say is their thoughts on this that has come from certain virologists. But we go by what the World Health Organization is saying and what our ministry is saying, and so we are going strictly by science. So that part is not yet proven. Said that though, there is some amount of also trepidation that yes, when you're exposed to someone who's also traveled, say in a congregation, in a conference, in meeting grounds, there are people coming from all parts, and you do not know each and every person's travel history in the last 15 days or a month. And since the regulations and also the kind of what you call as limitations in our activities has sort of eased over the last couple of months. So there is more travel, there is more movement. So it's possible that the exposure may also have happened to another person who has had a travel history. And that a large number of people also remained asymptomatic when they tested out some contacts, which has come out in South Africa and other countries. A lot of contacts did not have mount any symptoms, which is true for most of the viral infections. So that may also be a possibility. Of course, there are people who are also negating it, saying that that's not possible since the exposure was just a couple of hours. So I think it is too premature to make an assumption and be there, but it really does not really lead to useful conclusions here at this point of time, Meenakshi, because as aware and responsible citizens, you, me, should actually now stick to the precautions of being COVID appropriate in our behavior, wear the mask, and get vaccinated. I think these two arsenals are there with us instead of going into nitty gritty and small things about how somebody's got infected, what's going to happen. I think it's in our hands to prevent something major happening.
Absolutely. As many others have also said, that mask is like a vaccine in your pocket. But, speaking specifically of vaccination, ma'am, what do we know about the variant and how it behaves vis-a-vis vaccination? Does it have the capability to override the immunity provided by vaccination? And also, I'd like to ask you this in correlation to the immunosuppress the elderly, since, of course, as the head of the Neuro Department of AIMS, you very closely work with many
True,
patients like that.
Meenakshi. So that concern, that cohort of group of people who are elderly and who are immune compromised for whatever reason, they are on immune suppressants, they are on certain disorders, they're cancer patients, they're chemotherapy, they're taking steroid, they are uncontrolled diabetics, what have you, or transplant patients, whoever they are. Now, this cohort remains a cohort of concern because mild infections become major. Mild infections become severe and lead to severe consequences in this cohort. So they are always a concern. Now, coming to vaccines. Now, I don't think there is any kind of a doubt that vaccination will prevent a severity of an infection. That stays. Whether it prevents being infected, of course, is probably not 100%. Certainly, it may help, but it is not going to 100% prevent from getting an infection. Like it is, someone in one of the channels has given a very beautiful quote. It is like wearing a helmet. Wearing a helmet is not going to prevent you from all the exigencies and variations that may be happening when you're driving, but it will prevent a major head injury. Okay. So the infection occurrence may happen, but it's going to really prevent the severity. Said that, now it is those vaccines which have been developed against a spike protein, and since we know that in the spike protein in Omicron there are huge number of mutations, therefore the manufacturers of mRNA vaccines are tweaking the vaccine so that it is now going to be helpful for Omicron. But then
have not been administered in India.
Yeah. So, but then we have vaccines which are made on a different, the preamble is different here. So whether there is a escape mechanism to these vaccines, we don't know yet. Said that, there is also information which came from, again, World Health Organization, which said that there is an immune, evasive property, immune escape property of Omicron. They may be there. There are questions. That's the reason they said variant of concern. Therefore, I would believe that getting vaccinated would be of absolute, of paramount importance. It is definitely going to help you in
Mhm.
severity. That's one.
Okay.
Whether our vaccines are going to help in preventing Omicron, we don't know. We still need to have that progress to understand and get that literature and information, and there are people working on it.
Hmm.
Then the second thing is, now this cohort, whether it is Omicron, whether it is Delta, whether it is any infection, this cohort of elderly and immune compromised are a precious cohort who definitely need more protection. So they need to be definitely well
Yes, and ma'am,
guarded.
since you speak of, right now the elderly, those who have other comorbidities, let's talk about, the general population right now. In fact, not just right now, from the past few months, we've seen a huge debate around booster shots. Would you say that considering that we have a new variant which has so many, about 50 mutations, that's the least what we know of as of now, given what's happening in the world around us, given that we are detecting cases in India as well, do you think that that has expedited the need to give booster shots to a certain population, at least at the earliest?
I believe this is being definitely conclusively being drawn out. And I've also seen on the news that the ministry is also strongly contemplating that, and the task forces, the science bodies are coming to a conclusion very soon on it. Doing this, and there are, of course, parts of the world who are already going ahead and doing that. Yes, I think a booster dose would be required for the individuals who would be at risk of developing a severe infection, especially
Hmm.
since 6 months hence. There is some information in certain vaccine categories that the immunity wanes. That again will definitely need to be proven across our part of the world. We probably don't have a huge robust data coming on that, but then since this has come in, we need to expedite our, the kind of conclusive uh, way forward in terms of protecting these individuals. So I think yes, there is a role.
And what about children, ma'am? The head of the COVID task force has told us also in an interview that they are looking at providing vaccination to children also by the mid of next year. But the question right now is that we have a new study which has come out. South African experts and medical experts have also verified that a large number of children under 5 have needed hospitalization because of this new variant. Are children at a bigger risk this time? Should we look at vaccinating them as well at the earliest?
Yes, so that is of concern. It is true that the South African Medical Association has come out with this, that they do have, a rise in children under the age of 5 years with this variant infection. Although, again, they did not see that the infectious severity as such has been very extensive in that, but certainly it's of concern when you have a large group of very young babies coming in with this infection. It is of concern because it does not happen in at least the first wave and the second wave, and certainly not in our part of the world. So it is concerning, and hence I think there will be a way forward even for these children. But then I did hear that even the vaccinations for children are going to come on board probably even much earlier than what was earlier thought of. But again, as we speak, Meenakshi, since this kind of the rapidity with which the information is also coming in from different parts of the world, and our understanding and getting more robust evidence on which we can make decisions is also getting much higher and much more, what I would say, solid. I think we should not have, again, as I said, when you press a panic button, there would be knee jerk reactions. And that is, I think, that is what is being avoided by all responsible task forces and science, and even the implementation
Right.
agencies. So I'm sure, Meenakshi, we will have a way forward very soon.
Right. And ma'am, last question to you, since you spoke of a way forward, you said we shouldn't press the panic button as you sign on. What would be the word of advice you'd like to give people, considering it's the beginning of December, and end of December is really when the peak tourist festive season also begins. Any word of advice you'd like to give people? Don't panic, but perhaps masking, vaccination paramount.
Meenakshi, you said it absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. So certainly non-prioritized activities, please don't take up. If you can avoid a non-prioritized activity, I mean a gathering where it is purely of pleasure, getaways, gathering where it is not really required, you can make do with a less number of people or equally, postpone it for a few months, do that. Absolute essential travel is a must. The essentiality depends upon your own survival, your profession, but unnecessary travel, don't do it. We can definitely virtually meet and get going. Number three, please mask up. Never have a mask down or unmask and go about as though the whole thing is, don't say all is well and don't go around saying there's no mask needed. Mask is absolutely essential. Your COVID appropriate behavior is your first arsenal. Get both shots of vaccines, and whenever there is a booster dose which is given to the cohort where it is ordained for, please come forward and take it. So get vaccinated, get COVID appropriate behavior, be responsible citizens. You can do it.
Will
We all
absolutely be
can do it.
responsible. Wear your mask, get vaccinated, do not panic. Of course, as far as our experts go, that's the word of advice which has come almost through the morning in all the interviews I have taken. I hope it does help the viewers, and I hope some of you will actually follow the protocols even when the peak of festive season comes. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for joining us with your views on the same. Thank you, ma'am. I'm just waiting for the booster shot.
Me too.